Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So today we're going to talk about my PhD. Not in like an annoying kind of a sense, like to brag, but to just kind of share the research that I did and the importance of it. So I completed my PhD. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory for those of you who don't know. I started my PhD program when I just had 2 kids. I finished the coursework, which took about 3 years, when I was 36 weeks pregnant with baby number 3. And I successfully defended my dissertation when I was 36 weeks pregnant with baby number 4. So, yeah, all while my husband was deployed multiple times, all the things, right? So the title of my dissertation, if you're unfamiliar with what that means, it means when you complete your PhD, you have to share research, and your research is published in basically a little bit of a book. And so mine was called Predicting the Graduation of PhD Candidates in Online Programs. And what I did was I looked at all of these variables that go into a PhD application. So to give you a little bit of backstory, if you know very little about higher education, which is what my PhD is in. So higher education, universities, colleges, all of those things, they want to accept students that will graduate. It doesn't look good for them if their students don't graduate. So they have all of these variables that they want to look at before they accept you. This is why when you are filling out a college application, or if you've ever filled one out, they want your SAT scores, they want your GRE scores, they want to know what your GPA was, they want to know what your race is, they want to know if you're married or you're single, they want to know all of these things about you prior to them letting you in. Because they have an algorithm that says that this type of student is more likely to graduate than that type of student. Okay, again, this is an algorithm that they have. Now, what I found through my research was that those variables are bullshit. Yeah, so it turns out in my study, it didn't matter what the GPA was. That person had the same probability of graduating as the one who had a 4.0. The person that they accepted that had a 2.5. Right? The scale of which they accepted those people had no basis off of whether or not that person was going to graduate. That person graduated because they wanted to. Not because there was some magical score, some magical number and combination of things in my research that actually showed that they were going to graduate. And I'm going to be honest with you, the dean of my school at the time was not thrilled with my results. Not because the research was bad, but because they wanted to know what algorithm was going to most likely predict success in a PhD program. What type of student can we accept that is going to graduate? Give us that information. It's not there. It's not possible. Which means that it didn't matter the race. It didn't matter the ethnicity. It didn't matter the GPA or the SAT or the GRE or the income level or the marital status. None of that stuff mattered when it came to whether or not someone is actually going to graduate. The reason people graduate from programs is because they want to. Angela Duckworth calls this grit. Willing to move through these uncomfortable situations. Brene Brown also does a lot of study on this as well, but it's about how there is no external factor that's going to decide whether or not you're going to be successful. The only thing that decides whether or not you're successful is you. and what you deem success. So if your version of success is the little home on the prairie, that's awesome. I'm excited for you. You're going to achieve it if you believe it's possible. If your version of success is to be a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company and you believe it's possible, that's awesome. I'm excited for you. Right? The people who complete these programs, who complete their degrees, are the people who believe it's possible for them. And they do the uncomfortable things to do it. So if you're sitting there listening to me thinking, all right, Steph, I really want to grow my online business to 6 figures. Awesome. I love that for you. Do you believe it's possible? Because if you're letting all of these external variables, all of these things in the algorithm tell you you can't do it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Sorry. But the good news is you can change that. It doesn't matter what that variable is, as long as you believe that it's possible for you. So what's interesting here, again, I was not terribly surprised by these results. And I would read it to you, but quite frankly, I don't think you want to take a nap right now. But what was interesting and what I really loved about it was the only limitations that we're putting on ourselves are us. And in here, right, what I did find, there was one thing that had a bit more oomph on it than anything else, and it was a student's GPA in a master's program. If a student had completed a master's program, their GPA had a better level of prediction in completing a Ph.D. program. It wasn't guaranteed. It was a little bit better. So what does that mean? That meant, to me, as an educator, that their previous experience had a little bit more to do with it. So if you've created success in another area of your life already, then you can do it again. Right? If you have created success already, you can do it again. Yeah, but Steph, I haven't done this thing in a business before. You're right. Maybe you haven't done this specific thing before. But if you've been successful at completing a fitness program, if you've been successful at a 21-day eating challenge, if you've been successful at running a 5K, that correlates. And you can create that success again. So what does this mean? This means, and I love this part, so my dissertation chair, Dr. Ponton, total shout out to Dr. Ponton, he does a lot of research on what is called self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is the belief that even if you haven't done the thing, but you've done something similar, you can do the thing. So what does this mean? I'm going to break it down and give it to you an example because, well, I don't want to lose you here. So when I was writing this dissertation for my PhD, it's a couple hundred pages, I had never written a dissertation before. Ever. Never, ever. So I honestly didn't know if I could write a dissertation. However, I have written thousands of papers. My undergrad was a degree in English and political science. I had a 10 to 15 page paper due weekly at the minimum through my junior and senior year of undergrad, right? So I could bust out a 10 to 15 page paper in a couple of hours. I knew I could do that. So if I knew I could write a 10 to 15 page paper in a couple of hours, could I write a 200-page book in a couple of years? Yeah, I could, because I broke down the book into little papers. There are actually 5 chapters in a dissertation. Okay, and I was like, okay, well, here's paper 1. I can write a paper. Paper's easy to write, right? This is how you replicate success. If you've done it in one area of your life, you can do it in another. Just let that sink in. Now, before you sit there and go, well, I'm not successful, I don't achieve anything, not true. The very basic, you talk and you walk, that's a success. You learn to drive, right? You learn to write. You can write an email. You can post something on social media. You can make a phone call. There are plenty of things that you have done successfully. So the next thing that you want is no different. If you've created the success before, you can do it again. You just gotta stop overcomplicating it. I said that more to me than to you. So when it comes to this is what I help my clients to look at. When we can look at the things they've already done, put a different shift, a different perspective on it, all of a sudden the thing that they want to do becomes easier. Because they're like, oh, I already did that. That's easy, right? I'll never forget one of my clients. She was in one of my masterminds, and she wanted to charge more for her virtual assisting work, right? And I said, cool, I love that. And she said, but I don't know that I can justify it. I said, okay, well, tell me about your work experience. So she's telling me about all the things that she did, And I said, so you spent 15 years working in an office as like an office manager doing all the things. Yeah. I said, so why do you think you can't charge somebody for that work on your own? Well, because I'm not in an office, but you're in your office and you know what you're doing. And you can do all of these things from home. And it was like this light bulb went off and she was like, oh, you're right. I have done all of those things before. Yeah. And all of a sudden, she had claimed her power to be this personal assistant, a virtual assistant, right? And within a couple of weeks, she had multiple clients that were paying her the thing that she wanted to be paid. And it was just so fun to watch this realization, because all of a sudden she went, oh yeah, I can do that thing. Huh. I never thought of it that way before. I know. That's why this is so fun, right? So when it comes to creating success, the age, the race, the ethnicity, the sex, the income, the educational background, none of that shit matters. Because you've created success before, you've just got to believe that this level of success is possible. And maybe it's not the ultimate level of success that you want. Maybe you have to look at something a little bit lower to just get on board with it. So what do I mean? Let's say that your ultimate goal is to make millions of dollars a year. $1 million a year. That's your ultimate goal. But that feels really freaking hard because you're like, I made $500 last month. Okay, that's fine. Congratulations, first off, you made $500 last month. That's awesome. Now, can we make $1,000 feel believable? Yeah, $1,000 is believable. You could probably make $2,500 feel believable. Yeah, that feels believable. Cool. Let me just take inspired action on that. Ultimately, you're going to bridge the gap, and $1 million isn't going to feel that far off because you're like, oh, well, it started with just $1. Cool. Bridge that gap. bridge the gap. So I'm going to leave you here. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you are ever interested in reading my dissertation, I can send you that link. It's interesting. I think my father is the only one who's read it in my family, but I do have a nice little book of it. And again, it just goes to show that you can achieve whatever it is that you believe is possible for you. I talked on that a couple of episodes later, but earlier than this one, so. All right, well, I have the research to back it up now, so there. All right, I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye, loves.